Do you have any idea how long it actually takes to climb Everest?
Well, when you get to base camp, the key is that you have to let the weed balloon in your ass swell to the proper proportion before. Because otherwise,
so that it doesn't fall out.
That's exactly right. Because otherwise, you might get slippage. When you're up there, when you high five your Sherpa, you might get a balloon squirted out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tether Radio Podcast, the only podcast keeping you from spiraling out into the infinite abyss. I'm your host, Daniel, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and co-host, coming in from I don't even know where, Joseph.
Yo, what's up? And you may hear some bus noises in the background. You might hear some crazy homeless person, but we'll get through it. We'll get through it together.
Here, man. Also in the studio today, and I use the word studio extremely loosely. I've got Matt Reddin, who sat in for Joseph a couple episodes in April, I believe, as a guest co-host. Matt, you want to say hello?
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing well, brother. He's he came in from West Memphis, Arkansas, right? Little Rock, Arkansas, yeah. Sorry. So wait, in regards to West Memphis, where is Little Rock? I guess it's more west?
So Little Rock is smack dab right in the middle of the state. So it's about 2.5 hours.
Didn't our great president Bill Clinton hail from
Arkansas? Yeah.
I thought he was
from Hope. They're known for Bill Clinton and watermelons.
Bill Clinton and watermelons, dude. We got it covered.
You can pick which one you think is more important.
But anyway, man. Well, yeah, man. Well, how was your week, Matt?
It was good. It was only a 4-day work week, so that was nice. So. Enjoying the long weekend, man.
Yeah, Matt decided to roll into Knoxville to surprise his soon-to-be bride with a little visit. So he's hailing from Knoxville for this 4-day weekend, I guess. But anyway,
quick question, Matt. How did you and Daniel meet each other?
It was through pharmacy school. Some of my earliest memories of Dan are him sticking out his belly and slapping it and gyrating on the dance floor.
That sounds right.
Dude, he brought photos up from pharmacy school that, I don't really remember, doing some of the shit that I did. And, for instance, I showed up to, and it was a Freaks and Geeks party. That's what it was, yeah. But I went really freaky.
Yeah. Leather pants.
I did heels and a fucking riding crop. Yeah. And a mask.
A gimp mask.
Wait, what?
A gimp mask. The only thing missing from it was, the zippered mouth, essentially.
What?
Dude, the University of Tennessee, medical center or whatever, health science center. I'm surprised they gave me my fucking degree.
Well, did you win the Freaks and Geeks contest, or was there one, or how did that go?
Well, let me put it this way. Anytime I got out on the dance floor, there was automatically a huge, circle that would form around me for the sole reason of they didn't want to get close to me. So.
I just want to know how you got home and didn't get assaulted, because this was also on Beale Street, too.
Yeah.
So, there was somebody looking at him like, what is this freak doing?
Yeah. I need to fucking break this weirdo's ankles.
Oh, man. Well, there's this person, this shirtless person, staring at me through this window right now, and it's fucking so weird. So weird, man. It's they're far enough away where I can't really see their face, and it's fucking creeping me out, man. So I'm just gonna not look in that direction.
probably a good idea, man.
Yeah.
Hey,
Wait.
as long as they still have their pants up.
Yeah, I was
you're
gonna
all right.
I was gonna say, can you see their hands? They're not just like staring at you with their like hands down their pants or something, right?
I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know. They have like one of those weird like hippie hoodies on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like it's like a
it looks like a rug.
like a rug.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anybody that sold you weed in high school had this thing.
Yeah, totally. 100%, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, all about widespread.
All about widespread. Oh, man. But have you heard Fish's latest jam? It goes on for fucking 45 minutes. It's one song.
You're kidding.
I know. I'm completely fucking joking.
Oh, okay.
I don't listen to Fish. Fish is not good music.
Anymore.
Yeah, anymore. Oh, man. But anyway, speaking of freaky people staring you down and just freaky people acting freaky, let's fucking dive into this shit.
Let's go, man. We've got some straight juice today.
Yeah, dude.
Sure.
Our lead-in articles this week, well, I'll give credit where credit's due once we come to it. But anyway, we're gonna start off with this one that I pulled from Jalopnik. New York has a supervillain pulling emergency brakes and destroying subway commutes. So I love that this article literally starts off with a quote from an MTA New York City Transit person. And they were quoted as saying, "This is a nutcase who's addicted to fucking with the trains." I was like, all right. So there's this dude. Well, I say dude. No, I'm not going to put a gender on it. I'm not going to assume a gender. But there's a person that keeps sneaking into cabs and pulling the emergency brakes and basically doing it on multiple trains so that it's causing entire train lines to basically be delayed by like 15 a quarter of an hour kind of thing. So obviously that's very problematic for New York because they're also doing it literally at like rush hour times kind of thing. God. So that it's like fucking in the morning when people are trying to do their morning commute or like in the evening, and just basically being a fucking asshole and just like sneaking on and pulling emergency brakes. So.
Dude, I have it in my head. Do you guys remember Backdraft?
Yeah, totally.
Do you remember how what was the guy's name? The gray-haired guy that was like the old school arsonist. What was his name?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember.
Donald something. Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland. Gotcha. Yeah.
You remember how like he's up for parole? And there's like a scene where he's up for parole.
Did you just see this recently? How are you recalling all this?
Because I haven't seen it recently, but this just made me think of it. So he's up for parole and he's like trying to play it straight.
Yeah.
And then Kurt, what's his face? Kurt
Russell.
Help me out. Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Is like, or no. Maybe it's Robert De Niro. Yeah, it's Robert De Niro. he's like. He's trying to play it straight. He's like, yeah, I'll never do it again. I realize what I did. Donald Sutherland's saying this. Then Kurt Russell's like, yeah, but what? He pulls out this doll that's burned, right? Yeah. And then Donald Sutherland starts saying, oh yes, the flames as they licked lick the walls or whatever. And he gets like really fucking into like this like fucked up description of him doing that.
Yeah.
I would imagine that this interview session was like the same, you know what I mean? For the guy, they're just like, did you do this? And he's like, no. And then they like pull out like, like the red button that you push or whatever.
The red cord.
He's like, oh, like the touchy touch that stops the train.
The touchy touch. Oh my God. Yeah. He's like, there's no more of a rush than when you sneak onto a train and pull that emergency brake, screeching everything to a halt.
Fucking up every day in sight.
Yeah. Sending every businessman running, pulling their hair, wondering when they're going to make it to the office.
Have you ever been late for a meeting, Carl? Ooh, tardiness.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's full torque for tardiness for sure.
Yeah. Well, so excuse me. The funny thing is, whoever's doing this shit is like legitimately like sneaking onto the train to avoid like cameras and shit. Like as trains are leaving, they were talking about how they have like on the both end cars on the trains, because obviously the trains will go, they're bi-directional kind of thing, and so on both like cabooses, I guess, they have like some kind of safety stuff, like not wiring, but it's some kind of cords basically keeping people off of it. Mm-hmm. And it's been tampered with on all these trains that have been stopped, and like all the conductors or whatever, drivers or whatever they're called, all of them have noted this in like the reports, that it's like it's legitimately somebody sneaking onto the trains to do this shit. So I just think that it was like absolutely, I think it's funny, but it's also one of those things that it's like, God, what a fucking dickhead. Like, people are just trying to fucking make it to work, and you're just fucking with them, man.
I love that this is like what they consider super villainy, though.
Yeah, right.
It seems to be a bit of a jump. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you would not be friends with this person. That's for sure.
No, exactly, dude.
And even if you were, they really wouldn't respect your time.
Yeah, dude. But anyway, so moving on to this next one, dude. It's literally a super villain that basically decided to do good deeds. So I guess it would be really a superhero in disguise. But anyway, I pulled this one from CNN, and it's called "Man Says an Intruder Broke into His House, Cleaned It, and Left." So this dude, sorry, let me find his name, Nate Roman. He lives in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and he basically came home from picking his kid up from school, and the door, his kid said that the door was unlocked, and he was like, oh well, it's not that big of a deal, because obviously everybody forgets to lock their door every once in a while. But then he like walks in, and apparently some door that he always keeps open was closed. So he's like, okay, that's weird, because I know that when I left the house, it was open. So then he goes up to his son's room with his son, and finds that his son's room has been completely cleaned, like to the point of like it weirded him out, you know. And so I guess I'll read some of these quotes from it or whatever. He was like, but when we walked in immediately, there was a vibe that something was wrong in the house. So he discovered his son's room, which was a wreck when they left that morning, was neat as a pin. Which I don't know if I've heard that expression before.
No, I
right?
don't know how that makes sense.
Yeah, right? But anyway, he found that his room was also in the same pristine condition. So literally somebody came in and just cleaned this dude's place and left. But they didn't clean all of the place, and which I love. There's some details in this fucking article that are just fucking gold, man. So Roman was quoted as saying, rugs were vacuumed, everything was neat and put away. He said, and then he contacted the police, obviously, because you know you don't know if somebody's like fucking hiding in your fucking pantry or what. And the police were just basically like, no crime happened, nothing was missing or damaged, so they don't have anything to. I mean, obviously it's a breaking and entering kind of thing, but like past that, it's kind of like what. But they basically they were able to look at the timestamp on when the door opened, and then when the door opened again. Give me 2 seconds. But anyway, so when the door opened, and then when the door opened again, there was about a 90-minute 90-minute difference. So the person did about 90 minutes of cleaning in there.
So this something else is going to come out on this. Like, he's got to know this person. Come on.
Well, Well, and that's the other thing is, like, how is this making the fucking news? I wanted to like cover this because what? How is this fucking making the news? You know?
I mean, yeah, these cats are struggling for clickbait. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's from CNN. Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
Did they offer, like, full turn-down service in this guy's room, in his kid's room? Like, was there a mint left on the pillow?
Dude, so I'm glad that you asked this, Matt. So later, the dude discovered roses made from toilet paper in the bathroom, a detail that made him realize this was probably the work of a professional. It's like, so he thought, Roman said that he thought that it was a legitimate, like, professional cleaner that maybe had the wrong address kind of thing.
Yeah.
But apparently he said that his kitchen was untouched, and that made him second guess that theory. So this son of a bitch fucking broke in, just cleaned like a couple of rooms, did some vacuuming, I guess, and then dipped. They didn't want to fuck with the kitchen, so.
Man. I wish I could walk into my house and there's just be a towel swan folded up on my bed. And my kitchen would be clean.
Yeah,
That'd be
dude.
Amazing.
Oh my god! But yeah, dude, that was just I don't know. I thought it was funny that CNN thought that this was at least newsworthy, and I don't know. You don't hear about a whole lot of breaking and entering and cleaning without it, whatever unauthorized cleaning. But anyway, so this next one we're actually doing a 3-part lead in. But this next one, I do have to give credit to Aaron Hoskins, who has also guest hosted on here. So Aaron, if you're listening, brother, thank you, because this one's fucking gold. So he sent me this one from the New York Post, man. It's titled, "Man allegedly hiding drugs in butt accidentally shoots himself in testicles." So this fucking doofus, Cameron Jeffrey Wilson, 27-year-old from Washington State. He was carrying a pistol in his front pocket, and the firearm went off by accident, and it pierced his groin and thigh. So he's a 13-time convicted felon. Told his girlfriend to dispose of the weapon before taking him to the hospital. So
clearly this man is a mastermind.
Exactly, dude. It's like, dude, if you've gotten caught this many fucking times, just hang it up, man. Like, come on, you need to find another fucking
how can you be, I mean, this is from like this is like dumbass comment from law-abiding citizen over here, but like how the fuck can you be a 13-time felon and still be walking around? Like,
no,
that's
honestly,
that's a straight punch card, man.
Yeah. No shit, dude. Well, and the thing is honestly, I would guess that the vast majority of those fucking charges are like drug related.
Yeah. And
that it's just one of these things that it's like whatever. Because there's a lot of felonies that they're still considered felonies, but they're like, it's not that, like, the actual repercussions for committing them are not that bad kind of thing.
And I mean, this was in Washington, right?
Yeah.
So it's definitely not Florida where 3 strikes and you're out. So.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so his girlfriend took him to the hospital to get the firearm injury addressed. And so when the doctor is operating on his gunshot wound, a balloon of marijuana slipped out of his anus. So this dude's getting operated on, and fucking weed is falling out of his ass. And so,
why do you have weed in your ass? Like, it's not even that big of a deal in most states.
Well,
I don't understand.
Is
why
it not
keistering
legal?
weed?
Is it not legal in fucking Washington? I think recreationally it's legal in Washington.
I believe so.
I think so, man. So
Yeah, I think you're right. Hang on. Fact check.
All right,
I'll
you
take
check that shit. So obviously once that happened, the cops were called. Then they searched his car. They found meth in his car. And then so they got an arrest warrant for him. And so as he's being processed at the Regional Justice Center, he was strip searched, and another balloon of marijuana slid from his anus. It's like, first of all,
in Washington State, it is totally decriminalized and fully legal.
what a fucking idiot! Like, why are you keistering weed in a state that it's legal? Oh my god! Like, that makes no fucking sense.
So when Dan originally told me about this article, my first question had to be like, how just agape was this man's asshole that like balloons of weed were just falling out
They're
of
just
it.
falling out, man.
But I also did not know that he was a 13-time convicted felon at that point either. So that might explain a bit more why his asshole is just so loose.
Excuse me. But anyway, so let's see. So basically, to wrap this one, man, he ended up being he was ended up charged with possession of a firearm, unlawful possession of meth, which that's an interesting. Is there lawful possession of meth? Anyway, and then possession of a controlled substance in a correctional facility, which explains the weed falling out of his ass while being strip searched. And then 4 counts of tampering with a witness, which I guess would be his girlfriend, right?
I guess.
So here's the other question. You shot yourself in the balls. Could you not just take the time to shit your balloon real quickly before you head into the danger zone? You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, I guess once they anesthetized him or whatever, he just got all relaxed and shit just started falling out.
So gross, dude. So gross.
But I do ass weed. I do want to mention the New York Post's tags for this article. Crime, dumbest criminals, guns, shootings, WTF. Just like, oh my god, incredible. Fucking incredible, dude. But yeah, this dude looks like a guy that fucking keisters weed. Like, seriously. He's got a super stupid haircut.
Yeah.
wait! I gotta look at it real quick. Hang on.
It just looks like literally like fucking TV box haircut kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
If you ever pick this guy up hitchhiking and you're like ass, grass, or gas, if you pick either ass or grass, you're gonna get a double on that one.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
He's got. Yeah, he's definitely.
He's like, did you ask if I had grass in my ass?
Check and check.
Check and check, man.
Yeah, that poor bastard doesn't stand a chance, man.
Right. Jesus. But anyway,
speaking of weed.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Speaking of weed, dude, take us into this next one.
Speaking of weed, so this actually was not that surprising. Once, hang on just a second.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Once we started to get into this, but all right. So the title of this article is "A Betrayal by a Leader of Oregon's Cannabis Industry Shows How the Weed Business Went from Down Home to Cutthroat." Right. Mm-hmm. And I guess in a nutshell, the kind of updraft here is there's this lady named Beth Schechter, mm-hmm. Who works for a company, a nonprofit called the Open Cannabis Project, right? Mm-hmm. And her job is to protect small cannabis farmers by challenging patent claims on commonplace weed strains, right?
Yeah.
So what's happening here is that big pharma, or not even big pharma, just bigger companies, right?
Big
They're
weed.
well funded. Yeah, big weed. Man, yeah, that's exactly right. 15-year-old me's eyes just really lit up, you know. But weed companies that are well funded, or you know, are associated with large pharma groups or whatever, are filing patents on weed strains, right? And so some of these are like, excuse me, known kind of coast to coast. Like Gorilla Glue is just a thing, right? Wherever you go.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, once you get into this article, basically what ends up happening here is that there's a company called Phylos, right? Mm-hmm. And Phylos is simply, you know, selling out local weed farmers and you know, not protecting these local strains and the local weed farmers, right?
So is this kind of along the same lines as what is it, Monsanto that does the GMO shit, or is that the big soy?
No, Monsanto. I think Monsanto, they do a variety of things, but one of the things that they do is just like ag tech, right?
Well,
and
what's the company that I'm thinking of that did the GMO like soy, and they started attacking or basically suing?
It was Indian farmers.
Oh,
They were suing Indian farmers over. What was that? Did we cover that like last week or the week before?
No, it's been a while, but it was something along.
No. It was a potato. It was a chip brand, wasn't it? Suing them over the type of potato they were growing or something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember reading something, and maybe we didn't cover this, but I remembered something about soy farmers. Excuse me. That basically. The way that the plants were being not fertilized, but basically like insects and stuff taking pollen from certain plants and pollinating like other plants, you're going to have, you know, if you have two fields that are even remotely close together, it's gonna get mixed up. And they were suing farmers over the fact that they had like a GMO whatever like strain of like soy or something like that, and they were suing the farmers because basically the farmers were getting pollinated by their shit, and you know, but I mean you can't really fucking control that, you know. I mean it's like, and so it just ended up being one of these things that this huge ass company is like, you know, they're trying to sue these farmers over whatever, having access to these this GMO soy or whatever the product was, and it was just one of these things that it's like out of everybody's hands. Like, you know, I mean, you can't tell bees not to fucking fly over like, you know, certain plants.
So that was I actually didn't know that one, but the one I was thinking about was PepsiCo sued farmers in India for growing a certain type of potato that it uses in Lay's chips.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and this was like the date on this article is May 2nd. Yeah, May 2nd.
Oh wow, yeah, so I didn't even see that.
Cover a part of that, but
but anyway, sorry.
Anyway, suffice to say here, the weed industry is growing up, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, it's absolutely naive at best to think that when there's this much money in an industry that people aren't going to just be doing anything and everything to, you know, falsely frame or whatever intellectual property and just do a land grab, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought that this was really interesting because I mean, I don't know. I knew as weed started becoming like a thing. I mean, it's still not at scale, I guess, but as weed started becoming a thing, it's like every fuck up that I ever knew that was like, you know, selling weed or into weed or whatever, just like did a hard right turn to try to get involved in it. You know what I mean? So, so I just feel like that, you know, to a certain extent, like, you know, as an industry is maturing, you're not going to have good business people. They're not going to be making savvy decisions, and people are going to get fucked. But I think it's totally unrealistic to think that companies aren't just going to, you know, elbow in and try to claim as much space as they can in there, you know?
Well, dude, yeah, exactly. I mean, hell, I think that, and I can't remember if we actually covered I think we covered something about this, but didn't Marlboro, didn't they start patenting names of strains? Kind of stuff like Kona Gold and like fucking whatever,
and,
Gorilla Glue.
And spinning up trademarks around them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, like, obviously, I mean, everybody's just fucking waiting for the point that, you know, that it gets federally decriminalized kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they're just going to jump on it because everybody knows there's a fuck ton of money in that industry, you know? I mean, all you got to do is look at how much money Colorado or any of the states that have legalized recreational and the taxes that are brought in on that shit. I mean, it's kind of crazy, you know.
And also, I did a really, really shitty job of explaining exactly what this Phylos company was doing, but it was pretty insidious. Basically, they were selling genetics tests to craft, you know, quote, craft growers or whatever.
Yeah.
And then once they would get the results of those genetics tests, then they would sell that information to somebody else. Right.
Oh, wow, dude.
So they were like in it pretty deep. But I mean, I just think that's they would then sell those genetics tests, you know, the results of those genetics tests to somebody else.
Yeah.
And then they would and then that company would move to, you know, claim some sort of intellectual property on those profiles.
Yeah. So it's basically the 23andMe of weed.
That's exactly right. But I mean, it's you know, just to give you an idea of the scale here, and they mentioned this in the article. There was a company called Cura Cannabis, right? A company that, according to the article, that sells oil concentrates extracted from marijuana plants, made the Oregon weed industry's largest ever profit when it sold for more than $1 billion.
Oh wow, man.
So this shit's just getting started, man. And when you start adding that many zeros, you know, it's like, come on, dude. People get fucking killed for that, you know? So stealing your weed, chill out, hippie.
Chill out, hippie. Man, you're really grinding my gears, bro. Yeah. And they stole my grinder design, so hang on. Chill out, man. Chill out. Go blow a pipe, hippie.
It's so interesting, like all the things that are changing with marijuana becoming like decriminalized and legalized throughout the states. I know Arkansas, they passed a bill last year to make medicinal marijuana available in the state, and then I think it was just a couple weeks ago that the first stores actually started opening.
Yeah.
And I actually know some people who were investing in the process of getting a store open and everything, but like the amount of money that people have to dump into this just to get permits and access and permission to like build for this.
Plus, there's like a super wait. Isn't there like a huge queue for like basically waiting to receive a license kind of thing because they can only kind of put so many out so quickly or something?
I think so.
If you think about it, though, it's the biggest fucking racket ever, right? So it's like this thing that is transitioning from, like, it was never, you know, legal, right? Like in modern times, you know, I'm sure people like, you know, growing like shitty, you know, we're growing mids, you know, and you know, the early 20th century or whatever, and then it became illegal, and then that was that, right? And so now as it's transitioning back into this, like, legal thing, you know, the government's just got a fucking death grip on it. And, of course, like, to your point, Matt, they're going to charge whatever the shit they want to charge, and people are going to pay it.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, it's just like, you know, the whole process of like parking tickets and, you know, permitting and all that kind of bullshit that already exists, like, you know, that's just a revenue generating item for cities. And when they see something like this, I mean, I guess I hadn't really thought of it before, but they're in like pole position to be like, yeah, sure, it's like $500,000 or whatever to get your to get your CBD, you know, reseller's license or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Like all these small distributors and sellers, you know, that are obviously doing it illegally at this point. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that they were like banking on being able to get into this business once it was legalized, not thinking about how many fees would go along with it and just how much startup money you would need. I know the guy that I had talked to a little bit about him getting his license for it. He was saying that he had probably, I don't know, 8 partners invested in this because it was so expensive for them to do it individually that there was just no way that they could come up with the money.
Jesus, dude. Yeah, that's crazy. That's super crazy. Yeah, man. But, you know, like you said, Joseph, you know, it's one of these things that people that are in the weed industry don't think about business shit, like, or at least I would think the vast majority don't think about businesses like a normal businessman would. You know what I'm saying? They think that it's all for like whatever, the fucking greater good or something, and it's like, oh well, you know, and like, you know, like you said, Joseph, with a new industry that's emerging, you're gonna have people that are just fucking in there, elbowing in and just doing anything and everything to fucking make sure that they get theirs, kind of thing. And that's exactly what these guys
and you
do.
See, and I mean, you see this across the board in with new industries. I mean, like when, you know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. You know, when tech was kind of becoming a bona fide thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like people getting into it with like the best of intentions, but that's just not the way the world works. Like for people, you know, like Monsanto didn't become Monsanto by like, you know, being nice, right?
By running a charity.
Well, right. And so it's kind of shitty because it just like drives home, you know, all the all the blood sucking businessmen, you know, stereotypes, but it's true. This much money gets involved and people are going to get fucked, you know, and I'm definitely, you know, I'm sorry it's a bunch of hippies in Oregon, but I guess all I can say is, you know, grab a bottle of Dr. Bronner's and wash it off and just, you know, move on to the next thing.
Oh my God. Very nice. Very fucking nice. I like the reference.
Thank you. But, you know, like strap your Tevas on and
strap your Tevas on. Go ahead and douse your underarms with your deodorant crystal.
You know, put some tea tree put a dab of tea tree behind your ears and just get on with your day.
Finish braiding your beard. Get your man bun. Oh my God. Anyway, speaking of shitty people, let's go back to the Facebook stuff and cover that a little bit.
We haven't you know, beat up on them recently, so let's get after it.
We haven't beat up on our favorite android, Mark Zuckerberg, lately. So I pulled this one from the BBC News. Facebook, another 3 billion fake profiles culled. So basically, Facebook, obviously, you know, we've covered it a decent bit on Tether Radio, and Facebook has really put forth a decent bit of effort to try to get rid of all the fake accounts and, like, you know, accounts that are basically spreading like misinformation or whatever, fake news, all that jazz. And so they're really trying to crack down, excuse me, on, you know, on making sure that the actual people on Facebook are actual people and they're not basically up to shitty stuff. So between October 2018 and March 2019, they got rid of more than 3 billion fake accounts. So Joseph and I were talking about this a little bit before when we were actually picking out articles to cover for this episode, and it's kind of one of these things that, okay, they got rid of 3 billion or more than 3 billion fake accounts. That's super cool and everything. But then you get down into the article a little bit, and they were talking about that people had figured out bad actors, in quotes, had figured out how to use automated methods to create large numbers of accounts very quickly. So you basically, they have like bots pretty much running these fake accounts kind of stuff. And I mean, like, if they're able to generate whatever 100,000 accounts, you know, then in all actuality, I mean, fucking 3 billion ain't shit. You know, if you've got, and I mean, well, also people have figured out that creating a ruckus on Facebook definitely has an effect on, like, whatever, you know, society, or you can make it affect shit. But anyway, so they got rid of more than 7 million hate speech posts, and then, like, basically, Mark Zuckerberg was arguing that he thought that basically sorry, my God, I'm getting tongue-tied as shit. He was quoted saying, "I don't think that the remedy of breaking up the company is going to address the problem. The success of the company has allowed us to fund these efforts at a massive level. I think the amount of our budget that goes toward our safety systems, I believe, is greater than Twitter's whole revenue this year."
Man,
so I think that was
threw some fucking shade.
Yeah, right. I thought that was actually kind of funny, because he's just like, yeah, dude, we throw more money at fucking security than Twitter makes, you know. But I don't know, man. Getting down into you know,
Can that number just doesn't sound right?
What?
Like,
3 billion?
I mean, yeah, because I'm reading a couple of things here. It says five new Facebook. So I guess, yeah, 5 new Facebook accounts are created each second.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah.
Honestly,
so
that sounds right.
So I mean, it's just 3 billion accounts. Like, I don't know, dude. I mean, that seems a little over the top. I don't know.
And maybe so, man. But, like, I obviously, and this was the other thing that they were talking about, that they wanted to, that they were going to start reporting. God, let me find it really quickly. Because they were talking about that they were going to start reporting some kind of. Let's see. Oh, here we go. The social network will also now report how many posts were removed for selling, quote, regulated goods such as drugs and guns. Now, they don't have any of that reporting as of now, or at least to my knowledge. But I just thought that it's, I mean, I guess they're just shooting for more transparency, I guess, and in how they're addressing the security and stuff of their platform or whatever. Is that kind of what you're getting out of it, Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger conversation that we're having here is Facebook will be legally considered a public utility in short order, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, dude.
And I think that the regulation of Facebook will be, like, we talk about this a lot, how, private industry and this is pretty common, but private industry and legislation and the way that legislation kind of chases that private industry is always this, like, cat and mouse game or whatever. But like, there's no way that these social media sites are not, considered public utility in short order.
Yeah. And I mean, that makes complete sense. Because basically they're trying to, or or maybe they've already done this. I don't know. And by they, I mean the government, and whoever oversees this shit. But are they not basically trying to figure out how to change legislation to where they can? They're basically treating the internet as like pretty much like phone lines kind of stuff.
Well, more specifically, the actual ability to connect through social media. Yeah. So, like there are grants for people to get government, not government issued, but government funded phones.
Yeah.
Like, so if you don't like having a telephone because it is a public utility, there's an argument that you should have a right to access it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, if you do not have a cell phone in 2019 and you kind of slot under a certain income threshold, mm-hmm. you can actually apply to get a voucher to get a cell phone that's paid for by the government. Really? So, yeah, absolutely. This was the whole thing. I don't know if you ever saw these clips when Obama got elected, but it was like people talking about Obama phones or whatever.
I remember hearing about it, but I guess I just didn't make the connection. So
that's what it was. Now I don't know that the government footing the bill on a cell phone. I don't know if that came into place with Obama, but I definitely know with landlines that was the case. Mm-hmm. Where your phone bill would be picked up by the government if you didn't have access. And I think that there's a pretty strong argument to be made that social media, specifically Facebook, that's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's social media, but it is absolutely specifically Facebook.
Yeah.
Has kind of achieved that critical mass. But again, I don't believe for one fucking second that Facebook is like, cleaning up their act at all, right?
Yeah.
Like all of the transgressions have just gone deeper and been kind of reformulated and reformatted. But like, dude, it is, putting the tinfoil hat on for a second, like it is 1,000% a mass surveillance system.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's totally bananas that we've gotten there, but we have gotten to the point where,
people are voluntarily basically like giving information up.
And then that information is being repackaged and in some cases, weaponized.
Mm.
And then it's a total fucking issue. It's a total thing. But I don't know, man. I mean, Facebook removing 3 billion fake accounts. Like, dude, that's so many. All users of Facebook are what, 5 billion? Now, obviously, a lot of these fake accounts were like not live accounts, were accounts that were being uploaded and that were spotted as being false out of the gate or whatever, as fake out of the gate. But that to me, that scale is just really hard to wrap your mind around, So I don't know. I feel like that the headline, another 3 billion fake profiles culled, like that's great. That's great for for a PowerPoint. But as far as like what the impact of that is, who the hell knows, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're gonna see more of this shit before 2020.
Oh yeah, 100%, dude. Yeah. I honestly, it's gonna be really interesting how literally once 2020 rolls around, I would say that this is going to be where the spotlight is. It's going to be on Facebook, it's going to be on Twitter, it's going to be on Instagram, all that shit. And because I mean, fuck, dude, everybody was talking about how whatever $100,000 worth of whatever Russian ads basically swung the election. That was like the big like fucking talking point. Basically up to probably, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that. And how long has Trump been in the White House? So, but anyway, just as a closing comment about all this, they were actually able to figure out that about 5% of monthly active users on Facebook were fake accounts. Which that seems pretty fucking high to me, considering how big Facebook is. But
that 5%.
Yeah, I mean that seems pretty fucking high, right?
I don't know though, man. You know, because like they say that bots really make the internet work. You know, like yeah. I mean, you know, on. So and here's what I mean when I say that. The internet is really just a fucking fancy advertising tool. Like that's how it's monetized.
Yeah. For sure, man.
And so, sorry, there was in my mobile office there was a loud neighbor.
Yeah.
No, but the internet is really just a fancy marketing tool, and so because TCP/IP, the internet protocol, was given away and wasn't monetized, what people did is they monetized it using advertising and marketing, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like the very first websites. That's how they made money, banner ads, and that's pretty much still how it works. So. Yeah. When people say bots are on the internet, what they mean is that quite literally bots that are like selling and then faking engagement with ads.
Yeah.
So it's like a complicated kind of a yarn ball there. But yeah, long story short, I interviewed with this company called DevCon Detect about a year and a half ago. And it's just crazy. Like the vast majority of internet traffic is not a human being.
Yeah.
The majority. So it kind of makes sense that would roll over to social media. I mean, of course, it would be more sophisticated, but yeah, I'm with you. 5% is a massive, massive number.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll go ahead and cruise on to this next stuff, which. Joseph and I both kind of this came across the radar, and it was just kind of interesting, and it was, I don't know, kind of bizarre. But so I pulled this one to kind of kick off. We've got a couple articles that we're gonna kind of go back and forth on, but I pulled this because I thought that this was actually a pretty incredible accomplishment. In addition to it kind of leads into what else is going on Mount Everest. But I pulled this one from NBC News, and it's titled "Utah Man Dies on Everest After Reaching Goal of Climbing Each Continent's Tallest Mountain." So this guy, Don Cash, had like actually climbed the tallest mountains on every continent, and when Everest was his last to I guess whatever to summit, and so on the way down, he basically met a lot of traffic on Everest, which is fucking weird to be saying because it's fucking Mount Everest, but it kind of opened up this thing that people started covering this stuff that because there was such good weather over like a stretch of a few days or whatever, that all these climbers and like mountaineers were trying to summit Mount Everest during this good weather, and it was causing such congestion on the mountain that people were getting locked in these regions that like you're basically supposed to be passing through really quickly, kind of thing. And so when this guy's coming down from the summit, or no, I'm sorry, he actually passed out on the summit when they were taking photos and stuff. But then they were trying to like get him down to like address his, you know, health issue or whatever it was, and they, you know, people have just been dying because there's been all this congestion, kind of thing. But yeah, dude. So Joseph, what did you I know you saw one from BBC about it?
Yeah. So Everest. This just blows my fucking mind, man. Mount Everest was climbed for the first time, and I'm gonna look up the specific date, but I think it was like 1958 or something like that, 48 or 58, like not that long ago, right? And now And you're right. There is like a climbing season. You absolutely cannot climb Mount Everest in the winter, I think.
Yeah.
And so as there is a transition from between seasons or whatever, there's a very short climbing window. Mm-hmm. And so now that Mount Everest is so accessible, you have all these people that are trying to summit at the same time.
Yeah.
And because the window is so short, some of these pictures are fucking crazy. But because some of these the climbing the opportunity to actually complete the ascent is so short, you have lines of what look to be like, I mean, I don't want to over exaggerate it here, but like it looks like 80 people that are lined up to just like a fucking tourist trap, man. Are just like,
and you're on a fucking mountain.
Yeah, and you're on the tallest mountain on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting though because so many people are doing this that more and more people are dying this week. And I meant to text you this last night. 10th person died.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy.
Week.
Yeah. It's fucking insane. Oh, by the way, I looked it up. May 29th of 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary is the first confirmed person.
Right. So 1953 is the first time that Mount Everest was ever ascended. And now you've gotten into this thing where, when I was doing some tooling around this morning, fucking Mandy Moore, on people.com and People magazine, Mandy Moore is like, I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Hiking Everest is invigorating. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
you think she'll Periscope?
We can only hope,
Hey guys, smash the like button.
It's kind of smash the like below. Maybe I'll do the next. Maybe I'll take my hotspot up there and see how that works out.
Hey, I'm coming at you from the summit of Mount Everest.
Yeah. You guys got me? Just ran a speed test. No, but I think it. I don't know. So a couple of years ago, I went ice climbing, right? Mm-hmm. Up in like kind of near the Sierras, in California, and. I was like talking to this guide because it's like you get into the like climbing that's more technical and like unless you know your shit, like you really need a guide, And so I was like talking to this guide, and I wouldn't say we were kind of spending the night in an area called Lee Vining and then like hiking in each morning, and so it wasn't like super super crazy. But he was talking about how. Forgive that deep growl in the background there. But he was talking about how, super wealthy people would pay him to take them on expeditions. Yeah. And he was like, dude, it's just such a fucking bummer, man, because these people will pay you, like you can't deny the money because they're paying you an unbelievable amount of money. But he was like, we're like packing in like China, like literal fucking China at their request. And then, we're like broasting chicken and shit, like on the sides of mountains. And it's just like, it's just kind of a bummer because it's like the things to be discovered or whatever are just like shrinking. And instead you have, news articles that like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That it's just like
it's just a supreme bummer, dude. Well, because they're bringing like the city to these areas, or not the city, but like civilized world kind of thing to these areas that it's like the whole draw, in my opinion, to these areas is the fucking lack of civilization. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I don't know. I guess setting that aside, I totally agree with you, but setting that aside and like looking at the kind of the heart of the article, it is so fascinating to me that this has become so popular, and it ain't cheap to do, right?
No.
And that so many people are just in line with their dollars to make this happen, that you've got 10 fucking deaths in a week. 10 people dying. But it also speaks to the fact that, like, because it's so accessible, you have people that are trying to do it that shouldn't be doing it. You know?
Yeah.
They're not training. They're not, training for mountaineering. Instead, they're like, whatever, like taking their black Amex and hopping on North Face and, like, buying what they think they need. And then, it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I just picture a Sherpa with, like, a little backpack on, like, yodeling somebody up.
Yeah, right.
Like, they're just bundled up in there.
Yeah, exactly, dude. They're not even fucking walking.
Yeah.
They're just fucking on their back, on the Sherpa's back. But yeah, dude, it's just I feel like I've never seen anything like this shit. That it's overcrowding on the world's fucking tallest mountain. So, I did have a question, dude. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but how long does it normally take to do this? Because I know you have to do, like, you have to get to base camps and basically let your, like, body acclimate to the elevation and all that jazz. But do you have any idea how long it actually takes to, like, climb Everest?
Well, when you get to base camp, the key is that you have to let the weed balloon in your ass swell to the proper proportion before, because otherwise,
so that it doesn't fall out.
That's exactly right. Because otherwise, you might get slippage. When you're up there, when you high five your Sherpa, you might get a balloon squirting out.
Now, are 2 testicles a requirement?
Yeah, because honestly, what's his name? Fuck. I wish I had his name up. Cameron Wilson would not be a good candidate if 2 testicles are required. So
No, it's actually preferred. It's a little lighter if you can do it with one nut. No, but it's definitely a process. I don't know exactly. I'm sure we could look it up, but you're exactly right. You have to hike in and then spend a certain amount of time at different elevations before you summit.
Gotcha.
And then even once you go and summit, right? Like there's a window. Like you have to go up and you have to do it, and then you have to come back down, and then you have to spend more time at this base camp. Or it's like an approach camp or something like that, where you just have to allow your body to kind of, figure it out at that altitude before you.
So just some quick Googling, it looks like about 2 months is like kind of average, because you spend it was talking about 3 to 4 weeks to establish basically food and fuel and stuff, and because I guess they have to hike up and, like, basically create checkpoints pretty much, and then from the base camp to actually reaching the summit is about 40 days kind of thing. Jeez. So, man, that's a fuck ton of time to be.
These bougie ass motherfuckers, dude.
That's just insane, man.
Yeah, that's a lot of time. A lot of time to have, man. But
I know that
I don't know.
Said that the guy quit his job to join the Seven Summits Club.
Oh, Don Cash. Yeah, man. That's pretty fucking cool, man. Like, which he quit his. Okay, this shit is not cheap.
Quit his job and then he died.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show you, kids, don't quit your job.
Don't quit your fucking job, man. That's the lesson to be learned. But
causation or correlation, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Well, you wanna wrap us up, man, with this last update on Huawei?
Wait, what were you gonna say though? You're gonna say something about him quitting his job and it being expensive?
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say that it's. Okay, so he quit his job. He didn't retire. Dude's 55. Like, what? I wonder how he was getting this financed, I guess. Or if he was just. I guess his name is Don Cash, so.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm sure he put up a GoFundMe too. Hey, friends, you've known me for a while. Crazy Don, you know?
Crazy Don.
I mean, maybe he's just selling ass weed to people on his way up the mountain.
That's a
like,
good
you need
point.
to get a little bit higher?
Yeah.
I got you fixed, man.
I got you, dude. I got you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's like, I'm exhausted, dude. I've been shitting balloons for 5 months to get here. Don't you tell me I don't want it.
Don't you tell me I don't deserve to be have my spot in the Seven Summits Club.
That's exactly right. None of you, not one of you, has pounded your colon like I've pounded my colon. I see you looking at me, Carl.
Yeah. The sacrifices I've made. The sacrifices.
That's right. Don't you judge me, Klaus. You know? Oh, Klaus von Richtenstein. Yeah, that's right. You know, you didn't have to shit balloons, brother. No, but the Huawei stuff is kind of blowing my mind on this, man.
Yeah.
And I guess in the interest of time, I'll skin it quickly here, but basically Huawei, you know, the United States and China are entering into trade negotiations, which I guess could become a, quote, trade war. And Huawei is a great target because Huawei has been misbehaving for a while on the world scene, insofar as overstepping patents and being accused of, you know, intellectual property theft and all this stuff. And so Huawei may be barred from doing business with certain U.S. tech companies that supply subcomponents for some of the things that Huawei builds, right?
Hey,
hang on a second.
No, you're good. Actually, I'll ask a question. Perfect timing. When we covered that Bloomberg article, I know that the chips were coming from China, but do we know, like, the actual manufacturer?
Okay, so that Bloomberg article was rescinded.
Oh, completely?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. Then we'll move on.
But well, no. Here's the deal, though. It was rescinded. I don't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
Not for 1 second. Like I think that it is such a ludicrous idea that you've got world governments that are, I mean, by their own admission, right, are like battling for, you know, whatever supremacy and angling in any way that they can to, you know, get a leg up on another government, and you're telling me that manufacturers, you know, and specifically in China, aren't somehow parking something in the goods that they're sending over to be disruptive or to like spy? Like, of course they are.
Well, and just to do a real quick, I don't know if Matt heard it, and if there's any listeners that didn't hear that episode. Basically, Bloomberg came out with this article that they had figured out that a shit ton of chips that were, or was it motherboards? What was it?
It was server. It was like some sort of component for servers. Yeah.
Yeah. And like they had found out that there was like a microchip that was like no shit. And the Bloomberg article is super crazy, but like on like the boards or whatever. And it was like, I mean, dude, it looked like a fucking like pin, you know, literally like a needle.
Yeah.
Like end. But,
it looked like a baby bee's dick. If you're,
it looked like a baby bee's dick. But anyway, so
y'all know what I'm talking about.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Y'all know a baby bee's dick.
Yeah. But they figured out that it had the capacity to basically relay information. And they didn't know where it was basically being relayed, except they found out that it was being. Didn't they find out that it was being relayed to, or it had a transmitter, and information was being transmitted to China? Like, didn't they?
Yes. So that's what they were saying is that the information was being transmitted somewhere, and that was the suggestion that it was being, you know, transmitted to China.
Yeah.
but like, how does that not happen? Like, of course that happens. It's so ridiculous to think that it's not happening. But I think what is most interesting about this article is that this conversation about, globalism and, and the reality of global supply chains.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like that. All that happened very quickly, right? Mm-hmm. And we've covered this a little bit on this podcast, but one of the reasons that it has been suggested that the United States was able to become the global economic power that it did after World War II is that a lot of what happened during World War II, aside from Japan and most of Europe being decimated, the United States was kind of the last country with infrastructure standing, right? Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, if you zoom out and you say, okay, now let's swap military for Mattel, like you really just developed a shitload of supply chains, or certainly, the thought of global supply chains, right?
Yeah.
And so the reason I'm saying that is that all of that happened very, very quickly, this idea of like global supply chains. And so I just think that this is supremely interesting, that if you like look at your laptop, all of the components or many of the components in that laptop came from different areas. You've got shit that comes from Pakistan, you've got shit that comes from, China, you've got, metal that comes from, wherever, right?
Yeah.
And so I just think it's really interesting because as we enter into this era where, people 100% are being spied on and like, being able to put little things into the supply chain that become disruptive down the line or whatever is like, it's kind of something that is being, and I've used this word twice in this podcast, so forgive me, but something that's being weaponized in a really, really interesting way.
Yeah.
Huawei, honestly, certain tech companies, like if I were China, like I would think twice about letting Apple in. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, and that's what's really
Amazon, right?
Yeah, and that's what's like the super interesting thing, because honestly, I would compare what's happening in the tech industry to literally the article that we just covered a little bit of about the cannabis industry. That it's just these people just kind of trusting blindly almost, And I don't think that they honestly, I said that I don't think they trust them blindly, but it's just it doesn't seem like the due diligence is there for like thinking about like, oh, wait a second, we're competing with these countries, for like whatever jobs, businesses, all this stuff, yet we're relying on the same countries to help us succeed, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I just think it's absolutely impossible. I mean, you've got countries that are just diametrically opposed in terms of like what they see as like a viable future for their self-determination and their people, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of like China at the helm, if you ask, whatever, a Chinese government official, what does the world look like if China is the largest economy and, is in the position of the United States? It looks very different than the world we live in now. And if you ask the same of, somebody that was, whatever, like tasked with, thinking about Britain at that scale or thinking about India at that scale, like the world just looks very different if different countries are running it.
Yeah.
And so, so I just think that we're in this really, really interesting place now where everything is so interconnected. Like it kind of still must be to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, this is a deep rabbit hole, but I think with like all of these populist movements around the world, I think you're going to see manufacturing start to be based back in home countries, and I think you're going to see a huge amount of protectionism coming in from these different countries. Because frankly, like, is it worth paying 25% more for your fucking computer chip to know that you don't have, you haven't created like
spy shit in it?
Yeah, exactly. You can't have it just like lubricated and like an info line directly to Beijing, like probably.
Yeah.
So I think that's the most interesting part about this, is because it's like, I find it hard to believe that all this is being discovered. I just think it's been tolerated to date. And now we're reaching some rare air where, conflict sure as shit seems like it's around the corner, and people are just kind of reassessing. I say people, governments are reassessing the way that they do business with other governments. It's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out, particularly within the context that most technology that's adopted at a global scale comes from the United States.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. I think Huawei's on their way out, man.
Do you?
I really do, just because, man, if they get cut off, like it seems like everybody is doing, I don't see how they'd be able to meet the supply, I guess.
Right. Right.
But I don't know. We'll see. And tune in next week to your update. No, just kidding.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about. Oh, look at the time. Gonna have to cover that next week.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, it looks like we are plumb out of articles.
We are plumb out of articles, brother.
Yeah. So what is in store for the rest of your guys' day? Matt, are you hanging out for a while? Are you going to be there till Monday?
Yeah, I'm going to hang out through Monday, and then I'll head back at some point tomorrow. So.
Yeah, I'd say probably kind of laying low the rest of the day. We'll probably do a Sunday fun day and let Finn watch too much TV or something. So.
Attaboy.
None of us are really feeling it. So.
Got it.
Yeah. What do you got going on, man?
So yeah, just moved into this new spot. Gonna get a couple things situated, and just have some, boring business shit that I'm gonna try to get in today, and then got to get Martha on a plane back to Atlanta tonight, and then the show goes on Monday morning. So we'll see. But I guess tomorrow's Memorial Day, huh?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Well, right on. So I guess social media jig ?
Oh yeah.
All right. As always, Twitter listeners, we love you and we appreciate you tuning in. Hate mail, thoughts, comments. Maybe just a quick note of how many balloons you've been able to fit in your in your colon. Hit us up with any of that, all of that. We want to see it all. tetherradio@gmail.com. That's TETHERRADIO@gmail.com. You can find us in Twitter @tether_radio. Instagram, same damn handle, y'all, @tether_radio. Facebook, and I don't know, maybe we're classified as a fake account. It could be. I don't know, but Tether Radio, all one word. So this has been episode
50, man.
50. And Matt, dude, I hope we see you again soon, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And hopefully haven't driven off too many of your listeners with my grinding voice.
Well, we do a pretty good job of turning and burning them. So we have some that have stuck around, but we see a lot of tourists. No, but this has been episode 50 of Tether Radio. I'm Joseph,
and I'm Daniel.
We are reminding you to stay tethered, friends. We will get at you next week. Have a good one.